Welcome back to Rick and Elaine Discuss the Bible and in particular the book of Job. Good afternoon, my dear sweet sister, Elaine Ray Clark.
Good morning, my dear brother,
Can you believe it?
Rick
We did it two
Joseph.
episodes in a row.
Yeah. I mean, well, again, yes, it was I thoroughly enjoy. I could do it every day, to be honest with you, Rick.
Oh, I know. And trust me, we're doing this on a Thursday, which is late for us because of my schedule. I honestly would love, and hopefully my schedule will allow in the future where we could get up every morning and chat. I would love that. That would be so good.
Yeah, that
Um,
would be good because again, apart from yourself, again, there's nobody there that you can speak to. This is my sort of it's just wonderful. Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I know it's Thursday today, but it's unusual. But Tuesdays and Wednesdays, yeah,
yeah.
crazily
It's
amazing.
It's like whenever so when I'm at work, like we have devotions and we pray at work and stuff, but when I talk about the Bible at work, it's we just have to remember that most people are at the surface level and they're living their lives and they're going to
Mm.
church and they're getting what they hear behind the pulpit and they go on with their lives and they read the Bible when they can as they can and they're not necessarily getting into in-depth study. Generally speaking, that's where I see people all the time. So as you and I are going through this and I'm talking, we're commenting with our people in this group and then also, me being among other people within full preterist circles, we're all in this really deep loving the scriptures and
And
talking.
I think that's where you're so blessed, Rick, because you not only get to speak. Well, I'll say so blessed. It sounds terrible because I thought I was just about to follow it with you. Not only do you get to speak to me, but I mean is that you get to speak to other people throughout the week as well. So
Yeah,
you are constantly surrounded by that environment where I'm not. So
and I understand that.
I treasure every moment. And as I say, if I go, blah, 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 it's simply because there's an awful lot in there that,
Yeah, I get it.
it's
Yeah, I
just lovely
totally
to
get that.
express.
And
Yeah.
I'm one of those, I'm a content creator, so I'm actually seeking it and going after it and and so that's why and then at times for me it actually becomes overwhelming. I'm like, yee, little much.
Can I just turn my aircon off? Because
You
I
sure
can't.
can. While she's turning her aircon off, like they
No, the
say,
switch is only there. I was
it's
that quick.
very
Go on.
English. Aircon, you say, your aircon. I
Yeah,
love it.
aircon.
Before I get into the comments, I want to show you a gift that I received. Are you ready to see this gift? Look here. This beautiful little mug.
Oh,
We
how
have
wonderful.
It says on the mug, it says Songs of Fulfilled Promise, all genres. It's Tony Driver. So our friend Tony Driver made this particular mug and gave it to me as a gift. And I saw her last weekend and it was so wonderful.
Tony,
Where's
Tony.
yours? Where's
Yeah,
Elaine's?
this is really, Elaine Ray says, where's hers?
So all we gotta
Where's her?
do, all we gotta do,
Tony,
Tony,
do you
we
know what,
just
Tony? You can
yeah.
go off people, You can go off people. You can. It's
I
easily
promise
done.
you. She also
Easily
has a
done.
blue one. She has a pretty blue one.
That's it.
She had,
Yeah.
these are the samples, the two samples that she had made.
Well,
She gave me one of the samples. And I would say that if you were here, Tony would hand one to you. Tony, maybe we can
well,
figure out how to mail one to her. How about that? Let's see
no,
about
no, I'm too hurt now. Don't worry.
that. Yes, I get that.
No, I
All
don't want
right.
it. Don't want it.
So I can't remember what I read last time, but I'm gonna read some comments. All right, so this is from a new listener. He actually has been listening to the podcast. He's a supporter of the Burros of Bria and has been for years. I know him very well personally. His name is Chris Olson, and so this is a message
Hi,
from Chris.
Chris.
Hiya, Chris. This was from episode 9. He says, "Thank you both for sharing your time and the study with us. I know others have already said it, but I will say it as well. It means more than you will ever know."
Oh, bless.
I know.
That's all that matters, isn't it?
Yeah, and Chris is a
All that
precious friend
matters.
of mine. And thank you, Chris, for those kind words. I love you to death, man.
Yeah.
He's a huge supporter, not only of the podcast, but just me as a person. And he's a wonderful man.
Well, I
Um,
mean, it's lovely for me to hear that, Rick, because you have a relationship with him already, but I don't. So for
right.
me to hear that, it's pulling me into your family little group, whereas I feel like I'm out on a limb.
Yeah, yeah. And
It's nice to
so
hear them.
Chris meet Elaine, Elaine meet Chris.
Shake
Uh,
your hand,
yeah,
give you a
Elaine,
hug.
Elaine, could I borrow a pen? Thank you. I appreciate that. I
You're
know what
welcome.
people wasn't that good.
It wasn't even rehearsed, was it?
Not at all. All right, here we go.
Actually,
Um, so this comes from Tracy Ferguson. He is, I think I said in the last one that he's a little bit behind, and
he was
this one
lumberjacking, wasn't he?
he was
All busy.
lumberjacking, and this is what he says. He says, "Life has been busy for me. Finally got caught up, and this is a pretty powerful study. This one
Oh,
really hits home. How often, when you are going through our storms and our friends and our acquaintances come and say stuff, they try to fix it or tell you what to do, and all you really need is for someone just to crawl down into the mud with you and just love you and be there. Maybe
that's
not.
it.
Maybe don't say anything.
Yeah.
I can't believe that stuff happened back then too. Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun, Tracy.
No, there's nothing new. Everybody's the same. We've all been in those places.
That's right. And then he says, but I'm guilty of it too. When someone of my family or friends or acquaintances are hurting or down, I get out the old toolbox and I try to fix it. And then, but
I think that's basically a man thing, Chris. But Chris, Rick,
Tracy,
I'll speak
you
to my
talking to
husband.
your husband? That was a Freudian
Yeah, well,
slip.
I was just gonna say, yeah. Chris, when if I feel a little bit, men are fixers. They want to put it right, but sometimes a woman just wants to hear, "Oh, really? Oh, oh, oh,
Yeah.
oh." And a man, that's like not fixing it at all. They think, "What have I done?" You've done more than you know.
You know what's
More
really
than you know.
strange is the dynamic between me and my wife Holly is the exact opposite. She is one that when she hears me say things, she's ready to hop in there and get it done and get it fixed. Talk about being a helpmeet. I mean, she is with me once every step of the way. Now, for me, a lot of times when she says things to me, like I don't know if it's just because of time or whatever, but or maturity, maybe I listen and then I ask the question. Excuse me, I just sorry about that. I'm drinking
That's
coffee.
all right. It's
Um,
human, Rick.
yeah. I'll ask her the question. Do you want me to offer any advice or solutions, or would you like me just to not? Because like I'm with you on this one. And most of the time she's like, nah, I just wanted you to hear me. And so that's good enough, you know?
And
Uh,
that's the thing. And this is what I think men just don't understand. They need to put their masculine head just aside for a moment and just accept that a woman doesn't need to be fixed. What she needs to be, well, the way that a man feels that he needs to fix something, a woman's fixing is like Holly says, I just wanted to be heard and I feel better now. And
mhm.
that's it. We don't want any reams of scripture or any what you need to do is this and that. And it's just even more depressing. You just think, oh, go away,
Right. Yeah.
go away.
And
You are a
Tracy,
comforter.
Tracy says after he says, I got out the toolbox and try to fix it, he says, the Holy Spirit said to me years ago, can you hear me now? Like, how about you
Yeah,
listen to me, right? Thank you, Rick and Elaine, for going through this study with us. God bless you both. See you next week. Love you. Mwah.
absolutely.
Yeah, we love you,
Absolutely.
Tracy. Thank
And
you
it's
so
so,
much.
and you know what's so lovely is to hear that not only what we've been saying about Job and the comforters and about our own selves, but it's nice to hear that others are sort of giving their rendition of what it's like to be human.
Right.
How we all, like I said, there's nothing new under the sun. Different ages, but people's characters are still the same. You and I will talk about these things about how wonderful God is, and then, like I say, you go outside, get into traffic, and then you'll be like, and you
Yep.
think, and this is why people, I think, sometimes with Christians, they don't recognize that you're not saying that you're perfect. You have a position of being perfect because of Christ's righteousness, but you are still an imperfect person, desiring to reach out and become more like Christ. So you're not
Yeah.
going to see perfection from us. And I think that's where a lot of people say, oh, you're supposed to be a Christian. And you say, yeah, but for the grace of God go I. But that's the part you don't really want to listen to because you think it's an
Right.
excuse just to do what I want. But it isn't.
No, no.
It's
And
not. You go
that's,
to God and you just are really sort of, I've done it again. Why?
yeah.
Why?
And
You
I
know?
appreciate the honesty. Yeah, I really do appreciate that. Here's one from Cherry. She says,
Hi, Jerry.
thank you once again for your willingness to share this study with us. Again, I say that it has enlightened my mind and my spirit to hear and ponder on the information that has been provided to me throughout this study. Rick, I want you to know that I am truly an open book. The messages I send you personally can be shared with anyone at any time you feel led to share it. I am raw and blunt with my life, and some may appreciate that and some may not, but I am who I am, and God created me and loves me, so I finally have peace with who I am.
Mm.
Just this week, I have had daily struggles that have been almost suffocating and made me immediately cry to God and cry out to God and ask, what have I done wrong? Why am I receiving this punishment when I am trying so hard? But the study spoke to me in the midst of these trials and reminded me that I am a child of God and life's circumstances are not always punishment. Ev- Whoops, let me turn that sound stuff off. Sorry about that, guys. I'm always messing with my stupid sound. So she goes on and she says, well, I am a child of God and life circumstances are not always punishment, even though that is what our minds go directly to.
Well,
God has helped. Go ahead.
sorry, Cherry. I'm just thinking to myself, I don't know whether we directly think it's God, but I think that we turn to him in the sense of, well, you know what's going on. You're God. You're my father. So you do something about it. So why aren't you? I think
Yeah.
sometimes it's that. Do you know what I mean?
And I think sometimes I kind of get where Cherry's coming from because sometimes even in our like because of the state or what we're going through at the time, a lot of times, and I've done it myself many times, Cherry. Like I'm like, what have I done? God, is it because I did this? Am I being punished for this? And I remember my mother-in-law saying, no, no, honey, he's not a vengeful God, not in regard to us, his children. But yeah, but I get it, Cherry, and I also get what you're saying there too, Elaine. We do both, you know, depending on the state that we're in, right? So she says, God has allowed blessings and trials, but neither come based on me, but on him and what he knows are best for me. And
That's right.
trusting him is my answer, my hope, my peace, my comforter. The growth in my relationship has absolutely humbled and amazed me. Tony, this is Cherry to you, Tony. Tony, your music touches my heart in ways that I thought had grown hard and cold.
Oh,
Th-
blur.
Thank all of you for everything you do, and I truly love you all, even though I have not met any of you in person.
Well, I tell
Wow.
you what, we may not be there together in person, but we're certainly on the same page in the spirit.
Yes, absolutely. Here's a message from Lori Stone.
Hiya, Laurie.
And this might have been from last week. I think I've already said this one, but I'm going to read it again because I can't remember. Sorry, this is on me. We're getting mixed up in my days here. She said, you two really covered a lot in this episode. You are making this book come alive in ways I have not previously experienced. Thank you. Alan, if you have a conference, and by the way, he is, we've already heard this. I will buy the first ticket, LOL. Looking forward to those hugs, Elaine. When the opportunity opens for you to come to the US, I would be happy to help with the hosting and sightseeing. We
Oh,
live,
bless.
isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
We live east of Atlanta, Georgia, a couple of hours or so from Rick. My parents are in South Carolina, about an hour from Hendersonville, which is near where I live. So logistically, we could easily work something out. Now
I'd,
this is a message to Tony from Lori.
I'd love that.
Our little community, we're communicating, guys. Tony,
Exactly. And it's
yeah,
so beautiful,
I
you know,
love
to
it.
think that, and this is it, you when you look back in the Bible, you look at the nation of Israel, when somebody sort of stepped into a place where they didn't know, they sat in the public square and waited for
Yes.
somebody through hospitality to invite them in. And I
Right.
think that this is what's happening. I feel like I'm sitting in the public square. People know that I need a place, and people are genuinely stepping up to the plate. And that to me is what it's all about. It's just
Yeah.
being God's children, loving one another, letting our light shine towards each other. But also then, because you're doing that to each other, it just builds you up so much inside that you just come out a brilliant light when you're outside in public, and this is what I say, at the end of the day, we have no idea who God's children are. And this is the whole thing. People say, well, doesn't matter then who you preach to, who you talk to. If God knows who it is, it doesn't matter. But it's not about that. It's about keeping our spirit alive. It's keeping our light glowing. It's about giving glory to God. And not only that, it's having the privilege and the honor of calling God's children home, or God calling his children home through us as that vehicle. That to
Mhm.
me is incredibly amazing.
Yeah.
Who are we? Not only to be children of God, but then for him to say, right, you be that light, and I'm going to bring my children to you so that you can give them what I'm giving to you, and I'm going to bring them home through you. And what you're saying about me. Isn't that
Mhm.
correct? Isn't that, I mean, isn't that amazing? I mean, yeah, there's going to be people. I met somebody last week on Thursday, and we change left hand right hand drive lights over to left hand drive, obviously because people bring their cars over from England to Spain. And he was just talking about his life And, I said to him, are you a Christian? Yes. And he started explaining things that had gone on in his life before. And you just think to yourself, wow, if I hadn't just said to them, well, I don't do those sorts of things, I'm a Christian, are you? It's amazing how if you say to the Lord, Lord, put someone in front of me today that really that I could just share something with. And we spent about 25 minutes talking about his life, about Christ, about the church, what he thinks about it. And at the end of it, it was just so, we felt a connection. And I said to him, look, if I don't see you this side of heaven, I'll see you the other. And we cuddled one another. And before that, I didn't even know him.
Yeah. How about that? I've had many experiences like that. And you just know they're your brother or sister. Like you just know it.
Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, yes, God could have quite easily called him in himself or whatever, years ago. But again, it's this, it's connection, and he said to me when he went, he said, I really feel sort of like something's occurred here,
Yeah.
And I've had many people say that. I feel this, and this is what I'm saying. I think this is where the church has lost that drive of, like we're going through Job, and people are saying, it really is touching me. I didn't know there was so much there, like us, really, Rick. It really is making me think, and I think that the church has lost the art of really getting into what God is thinking, and how that thinking impacts me, and how I can sort of say, well, actually, I don't quite think like that, Lord, but I want to think like that, and it just starts the Bible sort of. It starts it living again. I think so many people read the Bible like it's a 2D book, but it's not. It's 3D. You step into it. You step into the Spirit. It surrounds you. It's inside you and it's outside of you, and you're sandwiched between it. And like Christ said, the Word of God is alive, and it bubbles up. You think of a fizzy bottle of lemonade or something. You'll open it and it'll bubble up, and but you get a flat bottle. You'll open it up and it go.
Yeah.
Do you know yes. I think some Christians are just, where we should be sort of, discern. I mean, you can't walk into a room and sort of, but you discern that, am I letting my light shine? I know that I always say that I'm on a dimmer switch, and my light never really ever goes off. It might go down, but then God, meditating on God's word, thinking about it, and then your switch goes up again, and you're this brilliant light again, and then it might go. And I think this is it, but we never, ever go off. And I think
there's also the other side of this where you have the charismatic type of person that has a lot of bubbles, but there's no flavor.
I mean, but where are the bubbles coming from?
No judgment,
is it
guys.
from the spirit that's bubbling up, or is it just because they're sort of like very emotional and that type of thing?
That's right.
As long as it's God's bubbles.
Yeah. So here's what Lori says to Tony. Tony, I was literally in tears as I listened to these two songs. I immediately shared them with two women's groups that I'm a part of. We are studying Ephesians in one of the groups, and the topic of being careful not to moralize emotions came up. What a beautiful and godly presentation of what expressing negative emotions can look like. No shame, no condemnation, no fear, just the love of our Father holding us in the secret place. So thankful to have the opportunity to connect and grow here with you all.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here.
Exactly. And it just shows you really how we are connecting as a family, because people are bringing who they are. That people that are commenting are bringing sort of like stuff to the table for us, for all of us. You got Tony with the songs, and you've got us discussing what we're doing. And it's true. The picture is being shown, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
the true sort of identity of what it is to be a child of God is being shown in every aspect of what people are bringing to this lovely little group,
Yes. Here's one from Alan Thompson. He says, greetings, Rockstar family. Greetings, Rockstar family. That was an hour and 12 minutes of my life well spent. That's how long our last episode, I titled it The King of Terrors versus the Living Redeemer. This is the one he's talking about. He said, I would just like to comment on verse 3 of chapter 18 that I think we can all agree on. The CJB, the Complete Jewish Bible, uses the word cattle, and the LSB, I'm not sure which translation that is, maybe the Living Standard, I don't know. LSB that I use says, quote, beasts. But the Alan Thompson translation calls Bildad a jackass. What a jerk.
Oh, right.
The Alan Thompson translation.
So what does it say in 3 for him?
It's in his the LSB, whatever version that is.
Why
So
are we thought of
feast.
as jackasses?
No. He is saying Alan is calling Bildad a jackass. That's the
Oh
joke.
my, well,
Yeah.
yeah,
He
certainly.
says a
It
jerk,
certainly
right?
is that. Then again, Alan, you see, it just shows you that even today we've got people that don't realize that they are that.
Mm.
You know, it's how do you tell someone who's a fool they're a fool? It's very difficult, isn't it? You
Yeah.
know, it has to be done again. We are why are we thought of as cattle? Why are we thought of as? It's sort of very God uses very poetic language. You had
Yeah.
to look beyond the poetry, don't you, to find out what's really being said.
Hmm.
And this is what I mean. We're going to talk about certain aspects of what they understood at that particular time period, aren't we, Rick? You
That's
know,
right. We're definitely going to get into that today.
yeah.
Alan says, true to form, I watched two of my brilliant friends engage in meaningful discussion and was struck by an important aspect of discipleship that I watched play out in real time. I'm talking about how you two, multiple times during this episode, consulted multiple translations to bring out the nuances of words and ideas. It started with the discussion about West and East, and I believe the figure of speech is called a merism. That's correct. It is called a merism, and you guys did a great job throughout. This was a powerful episode, and yes, Elaine, the reading was exquisite. Thanks to you both.
Oh,
Remember that because
bless
you were like, you thought maybe they don't, but he's saying that he loves how you read, and so do I. As a side note, our church had a distinguished guest this past Sunday who blessed our hearts with a song, a testimony, and insights in our Sunday school class. He's talking about me. Now, distinguished, distinguished everybody.
Distinguished Rick.
Well, when I was there, his wife Dina sang a song and it touched my heart so much it made me think of a song. And so I got up and I sang a song a cappella um, called Mercy Call Me by Name. I love that song and it makes me cry every time I sing it. Um, but we got a chance. He asked people to share their testimonies. I shared mine, and then while he's talking about the Sunday school earlier, he was teaching out of First Corinthians chapter 1 and talking about things as a side step out of the Revelation study.
How
And we
wonderful
brothers,
that you
it's a
ended up going
wonderful.
there.
Oh, I loved every second of it. I loved
Yeah,
every
I know.
second of
But then yesterday on what Tuesday, Rick said, "Oh, what I could have done was WhatsApp you,
it.
faster." What I
By the
could,
way,
but
I
really,
should
what it
have. I should have
was
WhatsApped
that
you and let you talk to everybody.
Rick was having such a wonderful time that I was instantly forgettable.
You never left my mind, but the
I
idea
really
of
love you,
connecting
Elaine.
WhatsApp.
Anyway, back to me.
I love you, but I'm the distinguished guest, so take a back seat.
I'm
No.
going to go distinguished Rick. So you're going to for now. You're going to be Drick.
So
Rick's
Alan
coming with
continues.
us.
I'm leaving that. Alan continues. Love you, brother. And in my mind's eye, Elaine was sitting in one of those empty chairs at the table, there in spirit and in our heart. So how about
Well,
that, Elaine?
Alan, I thank you for remembering me.
That was a slap to me. All right. So, oh
It
yeah, great
certainly
music.
was.
He said, oh yeah,
No
great
hiding it,
music.
Rick.
Nope, nope,
No
no
hiding.
hiding it. He closes his comment by saying, "Oh yeah, great music to close out the show." I had played, I think it was called "Highway to Holiness," which is a rock song that you will play for whenever you walk out at the conference. How about that? All right, last comment, and then we'll get into what we're talking about today. Tony Driver, hi Tony. In today's study, this really stood out to me.
Oh,
Bildad's greatest mistake isn't false doctrine; it's the refusal to allow mystery. And Job's greatest strength isn't perfect understanding, it's refusing to let go of God while everything else collapses. That's a good insight. One thing I'm personally taking away is the importance of listening, not
mm.
always giving input unless it's asked of me, and remembering that presence can mean more than explanation. Looking forward to next week's discussion and Bible study. Thank you, Tony. And you're
Bless
right.
you, Tony.
We should
Yeah.
really try to learn how to listen more for
Yeah,
sure.
and again, the thing is, it like we say, we're going to speak about it today. There's always sort of the revelation of the story. Here at this particular juncture, they perhaps didn't have the capability or the understanding that God could even be spoken to as Job was speaking to him. It was a shock horror moment for them, but it was also when God revealed that to them that it was okay, that God preferred that. That was a wake up call for them. And I think it's the same with us. There are times when we maybe are quite sort of adamant about something. And then God gives us a wake up call, and you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I never really thought of it like that. I never really
Mhm.
saw that. Or there's a revelation in what's just been said to me. And yeah, I really need to reevaluate, reassess the situation, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. Which will segue with what you said into this study today. So, in our last study, we heard Job say something that was quite shocking, really, in my opinion, for the time in which this is taking place. When he says, I know that my Redeemer lives, yet whether I'm in my flesh or out of my flesh, I will see God, post death. That's the idea.
What are we at? What scripture? What is that? 14?
Job 19. It was Job 19, verse 25 through 27. If you want to read it, go for it.
Verse 19, 24 to 25.
Or 25 through 27, I think, maybe.
Okay, 25 through 27. But I know that my Redeemer lives, that in the end he will rise on the dust, so that after my skin has been thus destroyed, then even without my flesh, I will see God. I will see him for myself. My eyes, not someone else's, will behold him. My heart grows weak inside me. Maybe his heart's growing weak inside him at the thought of it.
You know what? That I've done a lot of reading because I was like, that is such a fascinating idea because you don't really hear this. If you pay attention in the Bible, let's start there. From Genesis all the way through, you're going to start realizing over time that certain ideas start to develop. And resurrection is one that goes over a long span of time. It's a long it actually it doesn't come out right here in Job. It's not really defining it for you. It's just he's talking about a kinsman redeemer that will actually stand up. And the reason why he's saying it is because he's actually he's developing it. We've been watching it in this book. We've been watching him slowly develop. Okay? And so I want to point out there's a verse in Hebrews chapter 1. It's one of my favorite verses. I know I'll quote it in the King James because I know it. But the Hebrew writer says,
What verse?
verse 1.
Oh,
Verse
sorry.
1 of
So chapter 1, verse 1.
Hebrews 1:1, he says, and I'm going to do it in King James to the best of my ability. Tell me if I'm right. God, who at sundry times and in divers manners spoke to us by the prophets. Is that what it says?
Yeah, in days
Or
gone
spoke to our
by,
fathers. Yeah, go ahead.
God,
No, read
in
the King
days gone,
James. Read the King James. Do you have the King James in front of you?
I've got it here. Let me just go to Hebrews back here.
Yeah, God who at sundry times and in divers manners. I love how it says it that way.
It says here, God who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets.
That's it. Unto the fathers by the prophets. Yep, keep going.
Yeah. Well, in the Hebrew Bible, it says here, in days gone by, God spoke in many and varied ways to the fathers through the prophets.
Right. And then it goes on and he says, but in these last days has spoken unto us by his son. So we see, even when the Hebrew writer is just opening up his book, he's saying that God has spoke in various ways and through different people. And he didn't always say the same things. He was saying and revealing different things about him and his world and creation and how he's going to redeem it. That's one of those topics. He's going to send someone. One of my favorite scriptures, and I think it was one of Elaine's favorite scriptures, is what we call the Proto-Evangelium, Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, right? When within this oracle against, I call it an oracle because it is, it's a curse against the serpent. It says, I'm going to put enmity between you and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. So this initial curse on this, this serpent character is that there's going to be a seed from this woman that's going to deal with his seed, right? So it's right at the beginning, as soon as mankind is beginning to be separated from God in these curses, he immediately, I think it's prophecy, of course, and he's just immediately saying, I know the Redeemer lives. Basically, is like in a funny way if you say it like that, okay? But what I really go ahead.
No, I was just thinking it makes you think how much with what has been written down in Job of what he said. It makes you wonder how much of that's written in Genesis or what was handed down orally he understood. Didn't quite understand how it was going to happen,
Mhm.
but understood that that was going to be a case, that there would be a seed that would come and redeem. I mean, he must have understood about, the fact that there was a covering,
Mhm.
God actually slaughtered an animal to cover them.
Mhm.
Um,
Uh,
Abel's a sacrifice of an animal was far more acceptable. Blood was spilt, and so
mhm.
again, right the way. But how much did he actually understand? Even though he didn't understand, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right. That, yes. So what I had said last week is that before we go into Job 20 and 21, because they're going to go together, and it's going to be the final time that Zophar speaks. And it kind of set, I was kind of like, how come in these speaking cycles, after the second talk, Zophar speaks, and it's very short, and then all of a sudden, after Job, then there's a third cycle, but Zophar doesn't say anything. And I started finding out that there is this inner structure that's going on that this author of the book of Job is utilizing that we can't see in our English Bibles. And so he's showing how Job is actually through his suffering producing faith. Like faith is coming out of this suffering, whereas the accusers that you're learning are the accusers are actually creating a closed system, and they're slowly disintegrating back into themselves. They're not actually able to go beyond where the suffering is producing this faith in Job. But Job, as he's producing this faith, as he's enduring the suffering and he's going through it, he's pushing forward, and more is being revealed. And watch this. Watch what happens. In Job chapter 7, we've covered all these. Job chapter 7, verse 9 through 10, he says, "As the cloud fades and vanishes, so he who goes down to Sheol does not come up. He returns no more to his house, nor does his place know him anymore." Okay, so this is sort of what that ancient view was. Death appears final from the human perspective, right? And listen to Psalm 6. Psalm 6, 5 says, "For in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, who will give you praise?" So this is developing the idea of what Sheol actually is. It's like this silence removed from the world of the living. Ecclesiastes 9:10 goes further. Listen to this. "Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might, for there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going." Same worldview. Same worldview that Job is stating earlier on in chapter 7, right? It's a shadowy, silent, removed
Like you
from
said,
earthly
who will
life.
Lord you? Who will
Right.
give you praise?
Right. And it's also a place where people will not return from. That's a big one. Okay. And we know in our physical world, when somebody goes, you never see him again in this physical life. We know this, right? So that is the common wisdom. This is the same stuff that Job said. I know all the things that you guys know. I've been at the gate with you. I know we've talked about all this. Okay.
Well, you're just telling me what I know already, but
Right.
Job's expanding it with the situation he's in, with the knowledge that he has about himself, how he's
Yeah.
lived his life before God. So he's trying to equate the two. They don't seem to be going together, but slowly, as the others get further away, he expands and opens up. You can see this gap coming, can't you?
Yes. You're picking, yeah, you absolutely, and we'll get, you actually mentioned a heavenly courtroom many times in this, and that's exactly what we're going to, it is, but watch this. So at this state from Job chapter 7, as we move on, Job begins pushing beyond. We've noticed this in the study. He's going beyond the traditional understanding, and instead of accepting death, that it ends the story, he starts asking questions in regard to justice. Could it be possible that God might remember the dead and then vindicate them? That's the idea, right? So as he moves forward, listen to this. Job chapter 14, verse 10 through 12. "But a man dies and is laid low. Man breathes his last, and where is he? As waters fail from a lake, and a river wastes away and dries up, so a man lies down and rises not again. All the heavens are no more. He will not awake or be roused out of his sleep." So again, it's still that same worldview, that early Sheol worldview. Death looks final. But then he asks the question in verse 13. He says, "Oh, that you would hide me in Sheol, that you would conceal me until your wrath be past, that you would appoint me a set time and remember me. If a man dies, shall he live again?" Now, remember in our study, I got excited about that because I was like, wait a minute, now look what he's doing here. He's starting to see the possibility of vindication. It's a really major turning point for Job, and this is the suffering producing this faith. Okay. Then you get to Job chapter 16. We're further developing.
Can we just sort of go, can we just go on, can we just sort of read a little bit further down?
Go ahead.
Because again, you said, if a man dies, will he live again? Yeah, this
Right.
is this. No, he's starting to ponder. He's starting to
Uh-huh.
ponder. Is that a possibility? But then he says, "I will wait all the days of my life for my change to come. You will call, and I will answer you. You will
Mhm.
long to see what you made again."
Yes.
And that's
And
what I'm saying.
Mhm.
That's pretty. I mean, you will call, and I will answer you.
Yes.
Again, he's sort of saying, "I will wait all the days of my life for my change to come."
Mhm.
Is again, what is he saying there? What when he says, "I will wait all the days of my life for my change to come."
Mhm.
So, in what sense is he saying, "I will wait all the days of my life for my change to come"? Is he thinking that there would be something within the realms of his lifetime? You know,
Mhm.
it's a bit like when Abraham took Isaac up to be, God said, through your seed, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. Well, there you got Isaac being taken up to be killed. But we know that in Hebrews it says that he thought that God was going to resurrect Isaac again because he thought it
Yes.
was going to be Isaac. So again,
Mhm.
have we got this same kind of thing here? Is he saying, I know these stories. I'm just bringing them back to I'm recalling them. Will I wait all the days of my life? He will call and I will answer. Is that a possibility?
Mhm.
Or will I go down to Sheol? Will there be no hope for me? And like you say, now he's starting to think that there's two sides to this. There's two aspects to this that he's trying to wrestle with. And of course, does he know about Genesis 3:15? You
Mhm.
know,
Right.
as he orally, I mean, before the nation of Israel, they understood that.
Mhm.
They must have been already passed down. Joseph, Noah, and his family must have passed down these stories.
I'm sure they had. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so I you kind of hit the nail on the head there by saying, when Hebrews later says that he believed that he would raise Isaac from the dead, that is a development, that
Mm.
that happens. So the question is sort of left open-ended, even in Abraham's life. It doesn't say that in Genesis. It says it later in Hebrews, but
It,
it's talking
it
about suffering producing faith and the way in which Abraham believed God so much.
Absolutely. But even within the realms of that, it's lovely when Isaac goes up the mountain. He said, "Father, we got the wood and everything," and he's carrying it up himself. Bless him. It's just Christ, isn't it? And he says, "Where's the sacrifice?" And he says to Isaac, "God himself will provide his own sacrifice." And
Yeah.
I just thought he's just saying, "I'm going to provide Jesus in the future." And of
Hmm.
course, once he knows he's not going to offer, then he turns around and says, "There's a ram caught in the thicket."
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing, they didn't understand what was going on, but there was prophecy being sort of like, in a sort of a living poetic form, being sort of like right before their eyes. I mean, it's
This
only us
this
looking back on
plan
it
of
now that
redemption.
yeah,
Yes. This
and
plan of redemption.
wow, it's
Veiled in a
so
mystery. Veiled in a mystery, guys. There's a lot to this that's
absolutely.
veiled as we go through, right?
Exactly. It was a secret that wasn't explained. Again, this is the whole thing. Revelation. Revelation is the end product of Genesis. And the bit in between is how we get there. It is the revealing of God's plan, all at the that He had at the beginning to the end. And
Mhm.
this is it. And you just think to yourself, and like we said, God is just interspersing little aspects of, like, the word of God, His own word, being sort of like put out there. And it wasn't until sort of, you got the New Testament and the Holy Spirit sort of came, and the revelation then was starting to be sort of told by the apostles and Paul and that, as to what it actually meant. And it's
Mhm.
just, you just do stand back, draw, drop down, and are amazed at it. And sometimes you just feel tears coming, and your heart just rejoices simply because you think, "Wow, God did all that for us, for we are his glory.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I get that way too. I mean, I have moments when like I've told you many times, I'll hug my Bibles. It's so
exactly.
precious. It's precious
It
because
is.
yeah, he's
It
revealed his
is.
redemptive plan and showing me. And
Exactly. And this is what I was saying earlier. It's not 2D. It's a flat words on the flat pages, but it's 3D because it lives. You step into it. You are a part. This all these people that we're speaking about, they are our family.
hmm
We're going to see they're in heaven now. Yeah,
yes.
we're going to see them one day.
hmm hmm
We're going to say, you know what, Joe? We sat there and discussed you, and there was Terry, and there was Laurie, and there was Tony, and there was Alan, and Dina, and Tracy, and other people that,
hmm
and you said we were talking about you. What did you actually know at that particular time?
And Chris, the new guy, Chris is
Oh,
here.
Chris, yeah,
I
yeah.
imagine there's going to be a long line at Job's
I
seat.
pray
People are
so.
going
I
to want to
pray
ask
that the
some
people that
questions.
God, yeah, and I think, yeah, this is. I love it. I love it. I love the whole lot.
I do too. So as we get Job now, Job is developing through this perseverance, through this suffering. He's beginning to question these things. Yet will man live again? Yet okay, so watch. Then he starts wrestling with that idea of having a witness or an advocate or whatever, right? We've got that Job 16 verse 19. He says, "Even now, behold, my witness is in heaven, and he who testifies for me is on high. My friends scorn me, my eye pours out tears to God, that he would argue the case of a man with God as a son of man does with his neighbor." Now, we talked about that, and I loved how that said son of man. It doesn't necessarily mean the son of man in which to say the way that Jesus uses it, but I liked it because it's just the human one. It's the human guy. It's the human one, right? Not guy, but you know what I mean. So, this idea that if he's thinking post and being able to have this person that can lay their hands one on God and one on man, where we can have a mediator between us, a witness. He is getting into this throne room. Now, Job has no clue that there was actually in chapter 1 and chapter 2 an actual throne room that's going on. I guess maybe they knew this in their worldview or whatever they had, but there was this heavenly court, and he's talking like it's a courtroom drama, and he is the defendant in this drama. And he's wanting a heavenly advocate that can stand for him in that courtroom. So that's when we reach the point in
Like a
Job
witness,
19.
isn't it?
Yeah, we reach that Job 19 section where he says, I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth, and after my skin has been thus destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see God. He's expressing confidence. He believes that a Redeemer actually exists for him and will vindicate. Now, this is important. It's because he is saying, if the righteous die, if the righteous go and are suffering, and the wicked prosper, and then they both die, where is the justice? That is a problem. That is a problem. And so then you go to Sheol, then what? So Job is picking up on this, and he's like, God is just. I know he's just. You're telling me, guys, you're telling me that God is just because of the situation that I'm in. I'm telling you that God is just, even though I'm in the situation that I'm in. It has
It's,
nothing to do with anything that I've done.
it,
And
it,
that is the tension of this book. That's the real issue. That's what's at the bottom of it. Did you have something to say? I'm sorry.
no, I've forgotten what I was going to say now. I think that's the truth. Again, as time goes on and time goes through, you can start to see before it's an amalgamation of people and their
Mhm.
their sort of bickerings. Well, not bickerings, but do you know what I mean? They're sort of backwards and forwards, and their words are quite cutting. And poor Job is sort of desperate. But then you start to see now the separation of like God sort of separating this one and then this one and then this one and this one, like you said earlier on, they're starting to get a bit more visceral in the way that they sort of attack Job. But it's because they're sort of closing ranks on. It's almost like their thought system is being sort of challenged. They don't like it.
Right. No,
They
they
don't
don't.
like the answers that Job is giving. It's almost like
Mhm.
Job has now stepped out of something that has never been stepped out of before.
Yeah. Right.
And they just aren't getting. Again, it's a revelation of something
It
different
is.
about God, but it's like us. It's only in severe situations that another aspect of God's mercy and his grace and his compassion and kindness actually comes out. If he didn't have this situation, Job, he would never ever have ended up with the realization about God that he had has at the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm saying. Sometimes, you can understand why it says, consider it all joy, my children, when you go through various trials, knowing that God is working things out, things that you need to have worked out in your life, things that sort of have been a big issue to you. Through this, God is trying to bring a revelation. And at the end of it, it yields peaceable fruits, namely righteousness. And that's what everything's about, isn't it? Every situation that we go through, or we suffer, or we endure. And like you say, you go to God and you say, why am I suffering this? Why am I? Well, at the end of the day, I just think to myself, sin brought us to this place. But God says, within the realms of what you suffer, I am constantly there to encourage, to support. I am the compassionate element. I am that grace. I am that love that you need. I will support you. It's a bit like David, the things that he did in his life. God says, I forgive you. I will be there with you. But God says, you will suffer the consequences. And sadly, we suffer consequences of our lives. You might get someone who's done something and goes to prison for life. But in prison, God comes to them and calls them home to himself. Well, at the end of the day, just because you realize that, yes, you got this great moment of understanding who God is, but you're not going to get let out.
Right.
This is a consequence of your dealings. And I think, within the realms of all these things, the sufferings that we've had, how many times can we go alongside somebody that's going through the same thing and say, I experienced that? Well, if nobody had ever experienced it, what empathy could you give? Empathy is knowing I've been there. Sympathy is showing an attitude where you want to comfort them, but I haven't really been in your shoes. It's a bit like when people say, your child's died or something. Oh, I know how you feel. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can empathize, sympathize, but you can't empathize because you haven't been there. And I think this is the thing. There's a situation that your sister-in-law is now going through. That if she meets other people now that have gone through the same thing, they're probably going to listen to her far more, and they're going to get great comfort from each other because they have suffered it. And
that actually has happened. That has happened. There are people that have also lost children, and they get together and they comfort one another, and they understand.
And that's the whole thing, and this is why God allows it, and not only that, we understand what righteousness is. We understand that it's only, you can't go independent of God and succeed. It's an impossibility. You can't do it. Even people that don't have God, that exercise his thought processes and his morals, they might not acknowledge it comes from him, but it actually does. It's just an acknowledgement.
Well, we all know that it does, for sure. Absolutely.
And I think this is what, now going back to Job, this is what I think now Job is sort of like assessing in his own head and his own heart, that there's something going on here. And he's really starting to think about the whole thing now. He's done the bit, what have I done wrong? I've done what I should have done. I've done, and now he's starting to reason slightly differently.
And so, guys, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. Sorry. We're gonna jump way ahead, because there's something that when I started seeing the heavenly courtroom, and something that Elaine had said in regard to it, that it looks like there's this courtroom. We know that it's the courtroom up there, but it's also happening in front of him. All of this is happening all at once, simultaneously on many levels. But if you remember at the very beginning, it said that Job was like a priest for his family, that he would offer up sacrifices for his kids because perhaps they had sinned in their heart against God, right? So he's operating as a priest, but then he's, all this stuff is leveled against him. His friends come. This courtroom, the accuser's still in the mouth of his friends. All of this is happening. But what actually happens, which is so shocking, if you fast forward to the end, we're going to cheat a little bit. Let's fast forward to the end for a minute. And Elaine mentioned it. She said that God tells him to pray for his friends. So God is elevating the priesthood also. He takes what looks like a king and a priest, he reduces him into the dust, and as his accusers all pounce on him, when God comes to him, he makes it clear that his accusers were wrong, tells them to offer sacrifice, but that Job will do the speaking.
Yeah.
Okay? So he's actually being transformed into this higher priest in this land beyond the dust, and actually stands as somebody who intercedes for these people.
And he becomes the
They're not his family.
mediator.
They're not his family.
The mediator.
He becomes that. So what in essence is happening, guys? I wanted to give you that little bit of a cheat code as we continue going through this, is that we are seeing suffering producing all of this stuff. Now, where is that verse? It just came to my mind. We all know that suffering produces what? Where is that verse? Do you remember?
Is it Peter?
Let's see. I want to read it because it just came to my mind, and I want to see if we can show it. It's Romans 5.
Was it?
All right, so, yeah, let's go to Romans chapter 5, verse 3. Romans chapter 5, verse 3, and I'll have you read that 3 through 5. Let's read that out loud real quick.
Hang on a minute. I was cheating there. I was going to Peter. Romans chapter 5, verse
3. You can read one through 5 if you want.
Tiny. But not only that, let us also boast in our troubles, because we know that trouble produces endurance. Endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And this hope does not let us down, because God's love for us has already been poured out in our hearts through the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us.
Yes. All right. So obviously, Paul is talking about something that the believer in Jesus Christ has, who is the ultimate mediator and high priest overall, and God be praised for that. But in Job, what you're seeing is this wisdom literature that's showing you a man who's actually thinking it. I believe it was Ward Finley that said this a long time ago. Cherry, you probably would remember this. We were at a conference at Michael Miano's up in Long Island, New York, at the Blue Point Bible Church. And Ward Finley said, when you read the Psalms, I want you to imagine that it's the mind of Christ. Now, he doesn't mean all of every single psalm, but there are certain psalms where it literally, when you read it, it sounds like something that was inside the mind of our Savior. You know, it's obviously, it's pretty amazing. But in this case, what Paul is saying there, and you're right, I'm sure Peter talks about, I think Peter does actually do the same thing, where he talks about
being
endurance.
perseverance and stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, the perseverance.
Virtue produces this, and that produces perseverance. And
so, yeah, so the lesson that, and the reason why I wanted to take a step back from this right now, before we get into Job chapter 20 and 21, is I wanted to stop and say, look, we are watching a man who is suffering, going through endurance, producing character, and that character is producing hope. And that hope is something beyond Sheol. That hope is something beyond himself, having a mediator between God and man, one who is a human one who comes from heaven. This is developing through that suffering and through the accusation, which is exactly what happens to Christ. And it's exactly what happens to his church. And it's exactly what's happening to you. It is happening to us all. This is what, as these things come to us, y'all, as they come, and I can promise you, this is what I'm learning in my own, is that he is producing this endurance to get through it. He's producing a character, things that are changing within me, and I'm developing a hope. And I had a hope before, and this hope is even bigger.
But isn't that built on Christ's righteousness, though?
Yes,
isn't it? When you reason on it, you see it, you acknowledge it, you can see that the very righteousness of God is alive because it lives within you. You can see it. It's before you. It's not sort of abstract. Within the realms of your spirit, God's spirit is talking to you and changing you into his image again, which I've always said, I believe that the image of God is that you think like him, that you speak like him, and that you act like him. And he is the only one who has the ability to give you these things, thought, speech, and action that are in harmony with what's good and evil.
Yes.
You know, cling to what is good, flee from that which is evil. And this is it. And God is the only one that can do that. God is the only one that can tell you those things, you know, which is, we're going back to the Garden of Eden again. the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. You know,
Mhm.
it just, once that was done, the image of God, you just went dark. That's
Yeah.
it. The lights went out. So you couldn't think like him, couldn't speak like him, couldn't act like him. And I tell you what, Rick, you know, no matter how much I love God, no matter how much I adore Christ, he's that example. I cannot put my footsteps exactly in his. I can follow closely,
Mhm.
but I cannot put them exactly in there, because at the end of the day, I haven't reached that point where I exactly think like Christ. I
Mhm.
exactly speak like Christ, and I exactly act like Christ. I'll never be them, but I will be that which I was given. That is the image that God has given, well, back there to us. And that's what happened. And then,
The measure that was given to you, whatever measure of faith that
absolutely.
has been given
And
to
that's
you
it.
by the Father. That's right.
Exactly. And back there in the Garden of Eden, they had it all. And yet, by that one thing, and again, it goes back to this, you know, sticking to God. And I was just thinking about, yes, I know we're going off piece here, but, you know, about, you know, talking about women, how they should dress, you know, not have their hair all braided and, you know, elaborate clothing. And I thought it was all for men, really, because if you go back to the Garden of Eden, I think that Satan struck very quickly with Eve, because it says she was deceived, but Adam wasn't. And I
Mhm.
think that he was so frightened of losing her that he was willing to go against his thoughts. Just were that for this woman is these eyes, and he thought, I cannot lose her, you know. And I think that that was his downfall. And I think
I
this is the
mean,
whole thing. Is why the Bible talks about the eyes. It's what you see. You know, probably these were sitting there saying, well, I'm seeing you. If you lost everything, I'm seeing you. Your children have died. I'm seeing you. You look like crap. Yeah, you've got your skin stuck to your bones. You've got sores all over your body. You've got nothing there. This is what I'm seeing. You know, and again, it's beyond what your eyes see, isn't it, Rick?
mhm.
You know, you can't judge by what your eyes
Yeah, I
see.
mean, this book
It's,
has proven that it's way
yeah,
beyond what your eyes can see.
yeah.
And so let me show you. I'm going to say this. You guys are going to recognize what I'm about to say, but I'm going to show you like what I think is the resolution to the whole thing. I want you to hear these words. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Those words were uttered by Jesus Christ on the cross in the immense suffering that he was in. He had already asked the Father the night before to take the cup from him. God did not take the cup from him. He's going through it. He's nailed to a cross. He's been railed at by everybody. All of his enemies are around him, like the bulls of Bashan that you read in Psalm
Right.
22.
Yeah.
He is at the uttermost suffering right before his death. But as he sits there, he utters, Father. He asks the Father to forgive them. Now, some people are like, well, he's talking to the Romans, or he's talking to the Pharisees, or he's talking about his own people, or he's talking about wrong, 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 wrong. When he says, Father, forgive them, I think he means all of mankind. I think he means the swath of everything in God's creation that has been separated from him. He is saying, forgive them, for they do not know what
I,
they are doing.
I agree with that. But again, when you think of who were at the foot of the cross, there was Jews and there was Gentiles.
They were both there.
Exactly, because Paul says there's no one's good, not one of us. You've all fallen short of the glory of God. All of us have sinned. So therefore, he was saying, you know, in my blood, in my shed blood, in belief in me, in trust in me, you have life. So forgive them for what they're doing at this moment, because there's going to come a time where probably, you know, they may be even the ones that believe that I am the Christ,
Yeah,
believe
I mean,
that you know that I
he,
am that person. So
yes,
again, it, and again, you know, Psalm 22, I think I've said it before, which, you know, Christ was preaching from the cross. He said,
Mhm.
after all the things that had happened, giving him the gall and, you know, casting lots for his clothing, which he had no control over, that the last thing he says was, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why have you forsaken me? And he bowed his head and died. And I think what he was doing was pointing back to Psalm 22, because it starts, my God, why have thou forsaken me? On the
Mhm.
cross, he was preaching to those that were at the foot of the cross, saying, go
Mhm.
back to Psalm 22 and see all the things that you have witnessed there, written in Psalm 22. That's about me. And
Mhm.
again, it's the unfolding beauty of this cross referencing, you know, that you go, I just revel in it. I just love it. You know, and again, like you say, you know, right at the end of Job, here we have this man that's elevated to this wonderful position, this honesty. And here you have those that really need prayer, that have really misinterpreted the whole situation. And he says, intercede for them. I won't accept
Intercede for
theirs,
them.
but I'll accept yours.
And that really is that posture towards God that God tells Job to do for his friends, that Jesus does for his enemies, that Jesus compels us to do for our own enemies. We are to act as those who intercede. We
Yeah.
are to step into those gaps where there is darkness and bring light. We
That's
are to
right.
bring the salt if the salt has lost its savor. We're learning what it means to become a priesthood, really. We are learning because the temple, we are the temple. We are the building up of God's church, but we are a royal priesthood. We are those who bring light and salt into the world. But if we do it with a lack of compassion, we
Mhm.
err. And that's what's happening with those prosecutors. And Jesus is teaching his own as he's indicting. Jesus at the Sermon on the Mount is indicting the old covenant
Mhm.
and bringing about the new and explaining to you how you do it. And that is through love and compassion, through mercy and justice.
Eggs.
All of that happens. Christ is teaching how to indict that and
Mhm.
bring about the new. That is our experience every single day, guys. That is the experience of
Exactly.
life.
And that's the beauty about it. Like he says there, I want mercy, not sacrifice.
That's right.
No, anyone
I
can offer up a
desire mercy.
sacrifice, but
Yeah.
mercy, where is mercy? You go to the temple, you offer up this, that, and the other, and yet you'll go, get that away from me. You know, who's
Mhm.
he? Get him away. You know, where's the mercy? You
Mhm.
know, and where is that? Like, you know, I don't give a diddly squat about going to the temple and offering up that. If you haven't got mercy and sacrifice, you haven't got love, you got nothing. Like Paul
Right.
says, if I have all the power to transplant a mountain from here to there, I don't have love. He says, it doesn't do anything for you.
Nothing at all.
If you were to give this, that, and the other, you know, you speak in the tongues of angels and of men, you know, well, it's hyperbole. He's going beyond the things that you can do. Like you can't really move a mountain in as much as physical. You can't really speak in the tongue of angel, which is, you know, which we can't. And
Right.
he's using that to say, you know, but you don't have, if you can go to all those brilliant ends, raise people from the dead if you like, but you don't have love. What have you? It's nothing. It's
Right.
nothing. You know, you may have people out there that seem to do mammoth things. Like, you know, you read them on the internet, these ones that have got mega churches and they're behind the back, they're sort of committing adultery. You know, and you
Right.
just think, what's going on there? And yet you get little people, you know, like us that are in sort of like just a little tiny piece of our world that genuinely want to make a difference. And you know, there are people, like I say, that maybe have shocked people's faith and rocked them because of what's gone on. And yet there are little people like us that are being sort of, you know, given out to, I don't know, just a few people on this technology, our brothers and sisters that we're bonding with, that it means so much. And we are showing the love of God, which is everything. That's what spurs you on. Offering up a sacrifice didn't spur anybody on in the Old Testament. They just thought, well, yeah, I've offered that up. That's all right then.
Yeah.
Carry on, you know, status quo continues. I'm sorry if I keep going off of the track here, but so
you're
much
fine.
comes into my head. It's just, there's so many scriptures that you could constantly bring in to the, you know, I have to stop myself sometimes because it is a story of redemption. It is a wonderful story of God sending, you know, a redeemer, you know, a mediator to bring us back to that position where we can actually stand before God, go through the second veil and, you know, and enter his very presence. You know, it's, to me, it is just crazy. And I have that now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have
Yes.
that now. I was changed within the twinkling of an eye. I know it's before 70 and that, but I am in that position though. I will not have to go and sleep in the grave because the grave and sleeping in death is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. But
That's right.
I have been made immortal.
Mm-hmm. You have,
Even now.
yes. And so as we've been, as guys, and we'll just close it out like that because that's a good way to end because we talk about our current faith and the way that it is within time. And as we've looked at Job, we've looked at what it is in its ancient context and also where it fits. But what we find is that it fits actually everywhere.
It does.
This story fits everywhere. And if you can't see the person of Christ in Job, then you're not looking hard enough.
No.
That's exactly what we're seeing is the suffering servant and how that suffering servant is elevated to the highest of high priest, to the king of all kings.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
and here is God sort of saying you can sort of like, do whatever you like with him, just not his life. And he's still remaining faithful because God has got such faith in Job. And this is
Mhm.
Christ.
Mhm.
He says, do what you like, do what you like, do what you like. Even he's going to go into death. Well, I mean, Satan thought, yeah, that's it. Get him put on that cross, put away with. But I mean, at the end of the day, he'd done God's job for him. You were already going to be that one that was going to do that, but thinking you was going to get away with killing him. But that was always the picture. He was always going to be. He was always going to have an altar, which was the cross. He was always going to be the lamb that God says, "Don't worry, He'll provide His own lamb." That lamb, and Christ being the priest. He was all those
Mhm.
things on the cross. All
Yes.
of those things,
Mhm.
and he's done it all right back there
Yes.
at Passover. He'd done it all. He'd done it all. It was just a done deal.
Yeah.
In
And
fact, in Genesis, it was already a done deal.
yeah, but again, I'm glad you said the word Genesis or the book title Genesis. Guys, when we started this today, we were talking about progressive revelation, that God doesn't reveal everything and dump it all into one time frame or one particular person. He reveals things about himself and his plan of redemption and his attributes and all of that over time, and we start building this picture. By the time you get to Jesus, you've got the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the scribes, you've got the Herodians, you've got all of these mixtures of people that are there with him. And the tension of what happens after death is on high alert. Everybody's talking about it at this point. And the personified resurrection and the life is right there.
That's right.
And listen to what Paul says in Acts chapter 23. You guys probably remember this. It says, then Paul said, I did not know, brethren. Um, Oh, it says this is in regard to the high priest. Paul's sitting there on trial in front of the high priest, and it says, Paul said to him, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall, for you sit to judge me according to the law. And do you command me to be struck contrary to the law? And those who stood by said, do you revile God's high priest? And verse 5, then Paul said, I did not know, brethren, that he was the high priest, which I think is interesting. He didn't know. For it is written, you shall not speak evil of a ruler of your people. He's saying, if I had known, I would never have said that. Verse 6. But when Paul perceived that one part were Sadducees and the other Pharisees, he cried out in the council, men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. Concerning the hope and resurrection of the dead, I am being judged.
Oh,
And when he had said this, a dissension arose between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. For
yeah,
Sadducees say that there is no resurrection and no angel or spirit,
that's
but
right.
the Pharisees confess both. Then there arose a loud outcry, and the scribes of the Pharisees' party arose and protested, saying, we find no evil in this man, but if a spirit or an angel has spoken to him, let us not fight against God. So now Paul is actually very, very wise, very
Oh,
smart.
he's very sure. He's very clever.
He
Very
brought
up there.
attention on himself. He
Oh
realized he
yeah.
shouldn't have said that about the high priest because he had just broken something, by the way.
But
But then he
the
starts
thing is,
turning it.
though,
He's
right. But the thing is, Rick, there. Let's face it. He didn't know he's the high priest. He should have done simply because the high priest is supposed to be the high priest until he dies.
he does it and he doesn't do it. And here's the thing. Paul Paul recognizes this situation and he shows where to bring the dissension. And it's all around the resurrection of the dead and whether there's angels or spirits or not. There's so even then, within the traditions of men surrounding Jesus and Paul's time, the question of what happens in the afterlife was still very much there. And Jesus is going to resolve, he's got, first of all, he's going to answer that, and then he's going to resolve it. So that's why I wanted to stop for just a minute. Job is not defining the afterlife the way that Christ will. Not yet. He's in the early phases of it. This is the production of faith through suffering. And is God just? Understanding his attribute of justice and how it works, and will he be vindicated? And he comes to the conclusion that he will. And he is actually right. And God will say that he is. And his friends are actually wrong, like the scribes and the Pharisees and the Sadducees. It's not the same thing, but as we develop over time, we see those accusers that came against Jesus, they were
Yeah.
wrong too. The resurrection and life, Jesus Christ, he resolves all of this. And
Hmm.
so We'll get into that, but I just wanted to break away, guys. And so now we're going to come back. Go ahead and read ahead, if you will. Read chapter 20 and 21, and know that this is Zophar, who I believe to be the youngest and the loudest and the hottest, coming in hot than anybody. This will be his second time speaking, and it will be his last. He will not speak in the third round of speaking. There's a very good reason why, and we'll get into that next week. How do you like that cliffhanger, guys?
Hey, well, there you are. They're to work it out themselves.
Yes. So read ahead. Thanks for being here. Please continue to comment, ask any questions, whatever. We're all about it. If you think I got something wrong, please put that in the comments as well.
And me too.
Yeah. And Elaine Ray Clark, thank you so much for being here. And
Love it.
For yourself, when you say, I don't know if, you want me to say, yes, I want you to say all these things. I want you to just bring it in there. This is the Spirit working in us. Let it flow. This is good stuff.
And I just think, yes, just, what you're just doing is sort of like stamping, with other scriptures, with other thoughts, with other, things that are in other books. You're sort of building the story up. You're embellishing the whole sort of the outline, if you like, and then you're bringing other scriptures in to say, well, yeah, this is what probably is going through the mind of Job. He doesn't quite got it, but we've got it. And we can sort of see where the connections are being made that maybe Job couldn't see, or at the end of it, could he?
And I also want to say that there are certain aspects that we learn progressively over the Bible and get to the end that you cannot and shall not import before. You can't do that because God chose to reveal it over time. And he's letting us see that. So let's honor that. Let's not import things from the end back into the beginning, because you can't do that. You can't. We'll try to honor that. But we'll get into that later. So God bless you all. A holy kiss.
Love you all.
Love you all. Thanks for being here, and God bless. Thanks, Elaine Ray Clark. And y'all come back now. You hear?
Y'all come back now. You hear? Next installment is pretty good.
Yeah. Hey, y'all come back now. You hear? That's all. That's as good as I get. All right. See you later.
Circle where his grace is found.